I know what you're thinking. She's wearing a Harry Potter shirt. Her favorite book is probably Harry Potter. Well, you're wrong. It's not. It's my favorite book series. Hey, I'm Alex, and today I'll be telling you about my favorite books, because everyone loves book recommendations. At least I. I'll start with fiction books and then I'll do non-fiction, so if you only want to see that, you can just check the description below and skip forward. So my first recommendation would be The Secret History by Donna Tartt. The main character of the book is called Richard Feynman. He comes from a quite humble, working-class background with not a lot of money, and therefore dreams of becoming a doctor. But once he managed to get into medical school, he ends up not enjoying the subject, and his grades are quite bad. So since the only other thing that he really succeeded at in college was Greek, he decides to start studying literature at Hampton College in Vermont. Once there, he ends up meeting the intellectual elite of the school, who all seem to be in some sort of advanced Greek class, and he managed to impress them with his knowledge of the language. The class consists of 5 students who have all been handpicked by this very intelligent but also peculiar professor, and Richard managed to impress him as well and get admitted into the group. At first, Richard is thrilled to be part of this sophisticated group of students, but he soon notices that they form a sort of cult and perform rituals outside of class, which could be deemed as morally wrong by some people, and eventually it all just gets out of hand. The book consists of Richard's observations of the group, as well as the dynamics between the people within it. The characters are extremely well written and interesting, unlike anything that I've ever read before. My favorite part of the book, which is not a spoiler because this happens right at the beginning, is when a murder happens and the writer makes a reference to Galileo's experiment on falling bodies, and I just thought, this is how you write a murder scene. The second book is A Little Life by Hanya Yanigihara. This book is pretty similar to A Little Life, but with even more misery and sadness. It starts off with 4 friends, Jude, Willem, JB and Malcolm, who have all moved to New York to further their careers and chase their dreams. They're all sharing a very small flat, which only seems to be held together by their friendships and ambitions to make it in life. The center of attention is Jude, who is the main character. He's quite difficult to figure out and puzzling even to his friends and other people that he would call family. Throughout the book, we get to know Jude as a very intelligent but also very tormented man. The book follows Jude and his friends throughout their lives, from the early years in New York all the way up to adulthood. And as the book progresses, we get to know more about them, and especially Jude and his past, which continues to haunt him. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to ruin the experience for you, but this is a book which never seems to leave me, and I keep coming back to reread passages because they're just so well written. Don't let the size of this pocket scare you, because I promise that it's worth it. The third book that I would like to recommend is Normal People by Sally Rooney. I read this book earlier this year, even before quarantine, and it really exceeded my expectations and has easily become one of my favorite novels of all time. The book is about 2 high school students, Marianne and Connell. Marianne is your typical lonely nerd that everyone loves to hate, whereas Connell is the opposite, in the sense that although he also does very well at school, he's a soccer player and extremely popular. Marianne also comes from a very rich, although abusive family, whereas Connell only has his mother, who's working for Marianne's family as a sort of maid, and this is how the two end up interacting and eventually start a casual relationship. Connell feels embarrassed and doesn't want anyone to know that he's seeing Marianne. Marianne doesn't seem to mind that much at first, but they end on bad terms when they are finishing high school and go off to college without really talking to each other. Once in college, the roles switch, so now Marianne is the one with all the friends and Connell is more isolated. When they meet, they end up being friends again and hang out, although they keep their distance and date other people. As their lives progress, it becomes clear that those two just can't stay away from each other. I didn't think that I would enjoy this book as much as I did, because nowadays I normally don't read fiction, and especially not novels that would be classified as romance novels. but I could really relate to all the characters, and it's a very special book that deserves all the attention that it has gotten recently. The fourth book that I'm going to recommend is Atomic Habits by James Clear. This is one of the most hyped up books on self-improvement, and I understand why, because it's really one of the good ones. As the title suggests, this book is about habits, specifically how to form good ones and break bad ones. It talks about if you, for example, would like to become a writer, you should say to yourself, I am a writer, because then that becomes part of your identity, which automatically means that you'll start writing more, because once it is part of your identity, you will want to uphold that part of yourself. The most powerful lesson from the book is probably his idea of getting just 1% better each day. He argues that if you, for example, would like to start running, you shouldn't start with telling yourself that you'll run 10 kilometers each day, because that is not going to be easy to uphold in the beginning. Instead, he says that you should focus on just getting a little bit better each day. So the first day you could start by just putting on your running shoes and walk out the door. You don't even have to run. And then the next day, maybe you put on your shoes and you run for a couple of minutes. Great! And then as days go by, you keep getting a little bit further each day, getting 1% better. And you're then slowly building up this habit. And eventually you'll probably reach your goal of being able to run 10 kilometers each day. And that will be a habit that is going to stick with you for a long time. There are many more lessons from the book. I recommend that you just read it for yourself and take out the good parts that you need. So the fifth book that I'm going to recommend has a bit of a twist to it, because initially I wanted to recommend Space-Time: An Introduction to Einstein's Theory of Relativity by Søren Holst, but I then realized that it's only available in Swedish, so instead I'm going to recommend QED: A Strange Theory of Light and Matter by Richard Feynman. I highly recommend this book if you're a physics undergrad, because Feynman is very pedagogical, and this book will be a perfect introduction to the subject and help you understand future courses a lot better. Even years after reading this book, I can still recall some of his witty explanations. And even if you're not a physics student, I'm sure that you will enjoy and learn a lot from this book, so definitely check it out. So those were all my recommendations. If you watched this far, thank you very much. I'm still very new to YouTube, but my goal is to make more videos on studying and learning in general. So if you'd like to see more of that, I would be very, very happy if you would subscribe so that I know that someone is watching. Bye!